Morning, boys and girls. This is Miss DeAngelis with your skills lesson this morning. Let's take a look at what we're going to learn. Let's review the past tense marker at the end of verbs such as ed and how it can be pronounced as t, da, and did. We're going to read words spelled with ed, d, and dd. We'll also read the story Jack's Tale and answer comprehension questions. Let's review. Let's look at our flashcard. Do you see the power bar on there? Right, it's almost full, which means that this pronunciation happens often. That D says duh. Let's look at some most common spelling examples. The initial sound, which means in the beginning of the word, makes the duh sound. Let's check it out. Dog. In the beginning of the word, you hear the duh sound. The final sound, which is the last letter in the word, you hear the d, mad. You hear the duh sound at the end. This is DD. Do you see the power bar on there? Right, it's very small, which means the spelling is not very common. Here are some examples. Usually it's used in doubling situations, making sad to sadder. Or used after a short vowel. You have the word ladder, shudder, and huddle. Look at the ED flashcard. What do you notice about the power bar? Right, it's only pronounced as duh a little bit of the time, and it's not that common of a spelling. Let's check this word out. This is the word filled. What sound do you hear at the end of that word? Right, the duh sound. Now we're going to look at ed spellings that have the t sound at the end. Look at this word. You see the word asked. At the end of that word, you hear the t sound, even though it's spelled as ed. Say the duh sound with me 3 times. You ready? Go. Duh, duh, duh. Now we're going to practice. If you hear the duh sound in the beginning of the word, you're going to hold up a number 1. If you hear the t sound in the beginning of the word, you're going to hold up the number 2. Are you ready? Let's go. Tape. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you picked 2, you're correct. Dip. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you're holding up a 1, you're correct. Ditch. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you're holding up a 1, you're correct. Tuck. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have a 2, you're correct. Duck. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have a 1, you're correct. Drill. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have a 1, you're correct. Tin. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have up a 2, you're correct. Dark. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have up a 1, you're correct. Taste. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? Ding, ding, ding. If you have up a 2, you're correct. Last one. Dim. Are you holding up a 1 or a 2? If you have up a 1, you're correct. Great job, guys. Now, let's take a look at our columns. On this worksheet, we have the duh sound, the double D sound, and ending in ED with the duh sound. We'll practice the first few together, and then you are going to do the rest by yourself. You can pause the video so that you can write down as we go. Let's check out the first word, down. What column do you think down goes in? Right, the first column. Write it down. Remember, no floating letters. Nice and neat. Now let's work with the word trimmed. Where does that belong? Right, under column 3, under the ED. And at the end of trimmed, you hear the duh sound. Let's look at the word odd. Where does odd go in our columns? Right, in the middle with the DD. I want you to continue this by yourself. You can follow the video so that we can help you with the answers. Please pause the video so you're writing neatly. Do not rush. Now let's look at the back of this worksheet. We're going to look at our root words and add the ER and the EST ending to the words. They did the first one for you. You see mad, matter, maddest. If you need to pause the video to write, you may. Let's look at the word sad. We're going to change sad to sadder to saddest. Hard to harder to hardest. Red to redder to reddest. Loud to louder to loudest. Please pause the video to write the words if you have to. Make sure you have no floating letters and you can write it on the lines in the columns. Sometimes people like to tell tales or entertaining stories at night time when they go camping. Today's story is a tale Jack shares with Nan, Kate, and Max when they're sitting around after dinner. Jack's tale is about robbers or outlaws in the West a long time ago. The setting for Jack's tale is in the past, before there were cars or planes. Outlaws are people who do something that is against the law, such as stealing something that does not belong to them. Let's review some vocabulary. Ginger snaps, cookies made from ginger. For example, I love juice and ginger snaps for a snack. Outlaw, a person living outside of the law, meaning he or she does not follow the laws. For example, the outlaw was put in jail. Drawn, pulled. For example, the sled was drawn by dogs. Strong box, in a box where things are placed to be locked up and kept safe. For example, he kept his money in a strong box. Top hat, a tall hat normally worn for special occasions. For example, he wore his top hat to the wedding. Gents, short for gentleman. For example, the gents let the woman go in first. Nabbed, caught. For example, the police officers nabbed the robbers. Jack's tale. After dinner, we munched on some ginger snaps. Then Jack shared an outlaw tale. This happened out here in the West a long time back, said Jack, in an age when there were no cars and no planes. Back then, if you had to send a letter, you sent it by stagecoach. The stagecoach was sort of like a car, but it was drawn by horses. There was a place where men could sit inside, but the man who drove the stagecoach sat outside up on the top. The man who drove the stagecoach kept the strong box next to him. The strong box was a lockbox where he kept the cash. Sometimes outlaws would rob the stagecoach. Those outlaws were bad men. But there was one who some said was a bit better than the rest. His name was Bart. Bart was a sharp dresser. He did his robbing in a jacket and a black top hat. He had the best manners you ever saw. When he robbed, he did not yell and shout at the men he was robbing. Not Bart. He tipped his hat. Then he said, "Excuse me, gents. Would you be so fine as to pass down the strong box with the cash in it?" "No," said Nan. "Yes," said Jack. "It's not just a legend, it's a fact. You can look it up." "Did they catch him?" Max asked. "Nope," said Jack. "He came back and robbed the stagecoach lots of times." "Did they ever catch him?" I asked. "Yes. After a long hunt, they nabbed him. They charged him with theft and locked him up for a long time. He did his time. Then they let him back out." "Then what happened?" I asked. Jack said Bart shaped up in the end. When they let him out, he said he was finished with crime. "That's cool," said Max. Let's go over our discussion questions. How were letters sent from one person to another delivered in Jack's tale? Right. Letters were sent by a stagecoach. What is a stagecoach? You got it. A stagecoach is a vehicle drawn by horses. What was in the strong box? Right, there was money in the strong box. What happened to Bart? You got it. He was caught and was locked up in jail, and then he was let out, and he was no longer an outlaw. Now let's go over our comprehension questions. Write your name and the date at the top of your paper. Number 1, what did Jack do after dinner? Jack went to bed after dinner, Jack shared a tale after dinner, or Jack went home after dinner. Right, Jack shared a tale after dinner. This was on page 26. Who was Bart? Bart was a robber who took horses. Bart was a robber who took cars. Bart was a robber who robbed the stagecoach. Right, Bart was a robber who robbed the stagecoach. This was on page 28. What sort of manners did Bart have? Bart had bad manners, Bart had so-so manners, or Bart had good manners. Right, Bart had good manners. This was also on page 28. What is a strong box? A strong box is a locked box filled with cash in it. This was also found on page 28. If you need to pause the video to write, you may. Please make sure you're using your finger spaces and you don't have any floating letters. Number 5, what happened to Bart after he was nabbed? Bart said he was finished with crime after he was nabbed. This was also found on page 28. Make sure you don't have any floating letters and you use your finger spaces. Awesome job today. Make sure your parents send your work to your teacher. Keep up the hard work, guys.